Look very nice. All smiling together, 100 members. Or
It'll be like in June.
we'll still be smiling. Okay, I want to thank everyone for being here, and a special thanks to Senators Murray, Wyden, and Whitehouse for joining us. They're three chairs of three incredibly important committees to deliver for the American people. However, the House Republicans have taken the American people hostage. As you know, yesterday, Secretary Yellen warned that the U.S. government will likely default on its debt obligations as soon as June 1st. That's only 30 days from now. Rather than listen to reason, Speaker McCarthy has caved to extremists. By passing the Default on America Act, he's handed the keys over to the House Freedom Caucus, who are more than happy to let the U.S. default if they don't get every last cut and every last unrelated hard right policy that they want. In fact, the American people haven't even had the ability to look at what's in this awful bill, and I think they deserve to see it. And I believe Speaker McCarthy, from just a few weeks ago, would agree with me. Let me quote Speaker McCarthy the day he became Speaker. Here's what he said, quote, "I want to give all Americans a personal invitation. You're welcome to see this body at work. No longer will the doors be closed, but the debates will be open for you to witness what happens in people's houses. From the committee rooms to this floor, we commit to pursue the truth passionately and embrace debate. No more one-sided inquiries. Competing ideas will be put to the test in public so that the best ideas win." Well, Mr. Speaker, I agree. You didn't do it. But that's what I am setting out to do here in the Senate. This bill was written and amended in the dead of night, behind closed doors, with a pen in the MAGA Republican hands. So starting this week, we will be doing what the House didn't do, showing the American people what this bill is made of. If Republicans refuse to level with the American people about their bill, Senate Democrats are more than happy to do it. We'll show the American people how Republicans' Default on America Act will decimate federal law enforcement in this country, erasing nearly 30,000 law enforcement jobs and leaving border security hanging out to dry. They'll see how the DOA is a direct assault on families, slashing child care, cutting Pell Grants, and gutting vital programs like Meals on Wheels. Americans will also see how this is a handout for big corporations and the ultra-rich with their tax giveaways, while leaving the rest of American families out in the dust. So this week will be the very first legislative hearing in either House that actually looks at what the Default on America Act does. If Republicans want to sell their awful agenda to the American people, they're welcome to do so in debates about the budget. As Democrats expose the Default on America bill for what it is, our position remains the same. Both parties should pass a clean bill to avoid default together before we hit the critical upcoming June 1st deadline. As one House Freedom Caucus member said plainly, Speaker McCarthy cannot get to 218 votes with changes to this deal. Let me quote that again. Speaker McCarthy, according to a House Freedom Caucus member, and every one of them has a lot of power, said Speaker McCarthy, quote, cannot get to 218 with changes to this deal. There are likely two options left for McCarthy. Either Republicans cause a first-ever default on the national debt or go for their awful bill. There's a better alternative. We pass a bipartisan clean bill to protect the full faith and credit of the U.S. As Americans will see through these hearings, the DOA would tear at the fabric of American society, imposing dramatic cuts to public security, the cruel abandonment of veterans, terrible job loss, blocking access to health care, and brutal attacks on working families. Senate Democrats won't let that happen. Not now, not ever. Senator Murray.
Thank you, Senator Schumer. I want to make very plain what's happening here in Congress. The Secretary of Treasury wrote to Congress yesterday, and she told us that if House Republicans continue to refuse to pay the nation's bills, then we may see a default on our debt as early as June 1st. If Republicans force this country to default for the first time ever in our nation's history, then our economy will crash. American workers will lose their jobs. Seniors will lose big on their retirement savings. It's just going to be painful. Speaker McCarthy's big plan, his #1 economic priority, is to threaten economic catastrophe and hold the full faith and credit of the U.S. hostage. And in exchange, they want us to pass their Default on American Act so they can cut essential government services that we all rely on. They're going to slash funding for our veterans, make our country less safe, and surrender our economic competitiveness to China. House Republicans do not want to pay our nation's bills like we have done on a bipartisan basis so many times before, unless they can take a chainsaw to our economy with draconian cuts that will kill nearly 800,000 jobs and send us careening into a recession. I want to take a moment to make clear to the American people, if you think this bill wouldn't affect you, you are wrong. Maybe your family never needed SNAP benefits like mine did when I was growing up, but this proposal is a disaster for everyone. The MAGA Republican Default on American Act would slash vital funding that keeps our planes in the sky, our trains on the rails, and our food and medicine safe. The MAGA Republicans would pull cops off our streets, drive a wrecking ball through our border security, making it easier for deadly fentanyl to flood our streets. And if that weren't bad enough, House Republicans want spending caps that will lock in even more cuts due to inflation for the next decade. That is 10 years of China and our competitors investing in their economies, growing stronger, and gaining ground, while House Republicans tie our hands and force us to fall further and further behind. A lost decade for America. That is what MAGA Republicans are proposing. This is so backwards. China is not debating right now whether to wreck their credit or tank their economy. So why are House Republicans? Why do they want to threaten economic catastrophe and put us behind? House Republicans need to understand that holding the majority means they need to actually govern. It is past time to get serious about working with Democrats to simply pay our nation's bills and avoid a catastrophic default as soon as possible. Speaker McCarthy needs to start working with us to keep America competitive, to keep our economy growing, and to keep investing in our families and in our future. Here in the Senate, we are hard at work on bipartisan spending bills to move our country forward, not back. That's what we should all be focused on right now. Thank you.
Senator Wyden.
Thank you, Leader Schumer. And everybody understands that in a divided Congress, there will be disagreement and debates on economics, but there cannot be any debate that risks default for our country. The fact is that House Republicans are not offering a good faith proposal. That's because they give a free pass to billionaires and hammer Meals on Wheels. The fact is there have been House Republicans, you saw it all over the press over the weekend, openly admitting that they'll never support anything less than the ransom note that they passed last week. So this is all about holding our economy hostage to extract ideological trophies that cut clean energy, that surrender on the climate crisis and affordable health care, and enrich so many of their powerful allies. Wasn't any great feat for the Speaker to get this through the House. It was literally a competition among his far-right members to craft the worst piece of legislation possible to send to the Senate. The fact is, the Speaker of the House is in a much weaker position within his own conference than John Boehner was 12 years ago. And that's something that ought to concern all Americans who want sensible, good government, the way we did over the Trump administration and said we're going to come together and pay our bills. The fact is, the clear path to protecting our country and the millions of jobs Republicans are putting in danger is right in front of us. It is a clean bill to avoid default. And that, I just want to come back to, because I was the senior Democrat on the Finance Committee when I was asked again and again during the Trump administration, are you going to step up as we all face the question of what default would mean? And I said, of course we're going to stand up, because that's what you do when you're standing up for the well-being of our country. And that's why Ronald Reagan was against playing politics with default. It's why we came together during the Trump administration to prevent default. And I call on the Speaker to say that's what we'll do again. Thank you, Mr. Leader.
The White House.
Thanks, Leader Schumer. The MAGA extremists in the House have presented America with two absolutely terrible choices. Both default, which would be a disaster, and the Default on America Act, which would be a disaster, do serious and lasting damages to the economy. Either way, default or default on America, hundreds of thousands of jobs are lost, billions in American GDP is sacrificed. Why present us with that choice? Who wins from the chaos and economic destruction that they would create? Well, I'll tell you who wins. Creepy billionaires whose ideology requires them to hate the United States government, they'll do great. Huge polluters who want to be able to pollute for free at the expense of every other American, they'll do great. In fact, 270 pages plus of the 320-page bill is devoted to polluter handouts. So we have to put a stop to this. They have to threaten this way because they know Americans hate what they're trying to sell. So we have to stand firm. I look forward to the President explaining in the meeting to the Speaker directly the harm that he proposes to cause, and I hope it'll cause cooler heads to prevail.
Questions?
Leader Schumer.
Yes.
Will you put the Republican bill on the floor and allow your caucus and Republicans to vote up or down on it, and will you do the same with the clean debt ceiling?
Well, as you know, I Rule 14'd a clean debt ceiling package. It goes till December 31st, 2024. That's what Democrats believe in. We're going to wait till our meeting on the 9th, and then we'll make a determination. As for the other bill, they sent it to us, and after we pass a clean debt ceiling bill and get the debt ceiling moved way back, then we could use this bill for a proper discussion of the appropriations and budget process, where people have plans, different decisions on spending and on revenues.
Senator,
Yes.
you had said for months that House Republicans need to produce their plan. They did. You said that you didn't think they had the votes. They had the votes. You probably don't have 60 votes for a clean debt ceiling increase. So isn't it incumbent upon you and the White House to negotiate a deal with spending cuts to raise the debt ceiling?
These cuts, as we have pointed out, as our hearings will, are so draconian. The American people don't want them, and we cannot. These are not cuts, and this is not a plan. This is a hard right-wing wish list that everyone knows has no chance of passing and puts the American people in. McCarthy's giving two choices, given his hard right and how he's caved into them. Either a plan that defaults on the debt or a plan that defaults on American families in a very, very severe way. Yes, yes, yes.
Is a short-term extension of the debt limit going to be necessary at a certain point?
We should not kick the can down the road. I believe we should go for the full 2-year extension that I Rule 14'd.
Leader Schumer, what
what's your view on this Online Child Protection Act for digital things here? Senator Blackburn, Senator Blumenthal, would you consider that bill should be put?
Yeah, I believe we need some kind of child protections in an online bill. Yes.
Just to follow up on Manu's question on any middle ground, are there any cuts that you would even be comfortable making, putting on the table to get to a middle ground?
There's obviously a time to talk about that. It's not as hostage-taking with the debt ceiling. It comes afterwards when we talk about the budget and appropriations process. That's how it's been done the last 3 times under President Trump, even when the Republicans had complete control, under President Trump again when it was divided, and under President Biden. So the time to discuss those cuts is not hostage-taking with the debt ceiling. That is too dangerous. The time to discuss it is afterwards, as we usually do in the budget and appropriations process. Yes.
Do you think there's merit to the theory that the 14th Amendment supersedes the statutory debt limit?
Look, the way to go is a clean debt ceiling extension, and that's the direction we want to go in. Thank you.
Thanks all.